Hi there, welcome back to My Hot Kitchen. I'm Wendy, and we're here to show you another delicious romantic feast to share with your sweetie on your next date night at home. Tonight's feast will feature grilled shrimp with a lemon Buerre Blanc, arugula dressed in a chive and sun-dried tomato vinegar, polenta croquettes stuffed with roasted garlic, and for dessert, a black forest tower. So let's get started on that roasted garlic first, because it's going to take a while to do. Roasted garlic is very simple. You just take a whole head of garlic and a nice amount of olive oil. You douse it in the olive oil, rub it in. This helps to soften up the skin and sort of season the garlic. You wrap it tightly in foil, and then you roast it on a very low temperature, like 200, 250 degrees for about 2 hours. And that's why we're going to get it started first. And with that going, we can start focusing on the fun part, the dessert. So we're going to make a simple dump cake. You're going to need a half cup of sugar, a half cup of cake flour, a quarter cup of cocoa powder. Use alkali processed instead of Dutch processed, the flavor is better. 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder and 1/8 a teaspoon of salt. You want to sift the dry ingredients together to blend them and to work out the lumps. While this recipe isn't a very fussy cake recipe, it's still helpful to do this step. And then you can add the wet ingredients. You're going to need 2 cracked eggs, a quarter cup of milk, and a quarter cup of nice soft butter. Whip these together. When you start to see the ingredients combine like this, take a moment to scrape down the sides of your pan or your bowl. That way everything gets in there and it gets all nice and happy. This recipe creates a luscious and rich chocolate cake that is just about the right size for 2. It's so simple. That's why you're gonna love it. Incorporate all the ingredients and beat it for about a total of 2 minutes or until it pours nice and smoothly off the beaters. And at some point before it finishes, you're going to need to do another scrape down. Pouring very nice and smoothly off the blenders. So let's put it in the pan. I prepared a nice 9 by 13 pan here with butter and flour. That way my cake doesn't stick to it. It's a basic baker's trick, and it works like a charm. Spread the batter out. Get it into all the little corners of the pan. Make it as flat and level as you can. For nice even baking and nice evenly sized layers. And here's a nice little trick to finish it off. Give it some nice shaking and a little tilting until it looks nice and even to you, and then pop it in the oven. Have the oven set at 350 degrees, and it's going to need to bake for 15 to 25 minutes. It's going to depend on your oven, but bake it until the bottom springs back when you poke at it. Now let's start working on the filling. Traditionally, Black Forest cake is filled with Kirschwasser. Sometimes the cake is even soaked in Kirschwasser, which is a German spirit that is made from distilled sour cherries. Now I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of use for a big bottle of Kirschwasser sitting around, so I'm making my own, if you will. I just took about a half cup of cherries and soaked them in rum for several hours, infusing the rum with the flavor of the cherries. You can use any sort of spirit that you like, whiskey, vodka, brandy, any of those would be fine, whatever you have sitting around. The next thing you want to do is put it in a pan with about 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and bring it up to a boil to thicken it up. And then this filling is going to go in between each layer of the cake and give it that classic Kirschwasser flavor that defines a traditional Black Forest cake. So you can see that the boiling, the cornstarch has thickened up the alcohol and made this into almost a jam. So this is ready for filling. The only thing that it has to do now is just cool down, because you don't want to use this in a hot form on the cake. Get it all out of there, because you're going to want every ounce of that deliciousness in the cake. The next thing to do is start working on the frosting. So you're going to need a whole stick of butter. You're going to make a nice big batch of frosting. Start with a whole stick of butter and 4 cups of powdered sugar, but only add half of it at once. That way you don't end up with a powdered sugar explosion in your face and all over your nice dress. Just beat the sugar and butter together until all the sugar has been incorporated. This is a very classic and simple buttercream frosting. Butter, sugar, a little liquid to thin it out. That's in a good state right there. Let's add the rest of the powdered sugar. So one of the reasons we're making such a big batch is because you want to put the frosting on there nice and thick. The other reason is because a little extra frosting left over is fun. So once you have the sugar and the butter all incorporated together, you'll probably see a nice mealy mix in front of you, and you might be wondering, hey, where's my frosting? So introduce a little liquid component to it, and you'll see your frosting manifest. You can use water, milk, cream, whatever you got. I'm using a little milk. I'm just going to add it a few drops at a time and incorporate it in very slowly until I see the frosting turn into frosting. A little bit more milk. There we go. Crank it up. You can see that it's very stiff and it's holding its shape. That's perfect. The amount of liquid that you add will change depending on conditions in your kitchen. Go ahead and scrape the sides of the bowl and bring it all together. Test your consistency. It should be spreadable, but have a nice pushback. Perfect. Now with the frosting all done, it's time to check on the cake. Put down a couple hot pads there, because it's going to be hot. Let's pull it out and take a look at it. Poke it in the middle, and if it feels solid and it springs back, it's done. Well, that feels nice and cool now. There's absolutely no heat left to it, so it's perfect. So I'm now going to cut out the layers. I'm going to use this cute little heart cookie cutter, and I expect to get 5 or 6 layers out of this. Now, how many layers you get out is going to depend on the size of your pan and what size of cookie cutter you're going to use. But the cookie cutter is a great way to go about this because it ensures a nice, even shape for each layer, which is important to building a beautiful work of art such as this Black Forest tower. 5 nice little hearts, all ready for layering. Clean up the edges a little bit. And let's start building. So I'm going to take a nice little dollop of the cherry rum filling. I'm going to center it in there and spread it out just a little bit and leave plenty of room at the edges. And then let's add another layer. Repeat until you've used them all. And then line it up. It's helpful to look right over the top of it because that'll help you see any misaligned edges. And then it's time for the frosting. So one thing that you're going to want to have handy when you're frosting a cake is a glass of very hot water and a nice spatula. You want to draw the water right out of the tap at its hottest point for the best results. Just start smoothing on the frosting. So the most important part of the presentation of the Black Forest Tower is the top, because the sides are going to get covered in chocolate shavings. So any little holes or crumbs showing, they're not going to matter because they're going to be disguised. So focus your efforts on making the top as white and crisp and clean as you can, and you'll be in there. Just keep dipping your spatula in warm water and adding a little bit more frosting until you've achieved that pretty white appearance I just talked about. Run your spatula along the outside edges to form a nice, clean, crisp heart shape. And when you're satisfied with your efforts, you're good to proceed to the next step. There we go. Now take some nice chocolate shavings. I have a very rich bittersweet chocolate here. Sort of press it onto that frosting. This particular chocolate that I chose is an 80% cacao. So there's almost no sweetness to it. It's a perfect offset to the sweetness of the frosting. Well, I'm satisfied with that. That looks fantastic. I'm just going to brush off these extra little chocolate shavings that gathered on the bottom of the plate. Use those for something else, another baking project in the future. And to clean up the presentation, I'm going to wipe the rim with a little damp cloth. Make Make it all crisp and shiny and bright. Don't worry about getting too close to the cake. You don't want to destroy your hard work on those chocolate shavings. Okay, all nice and cleaned up. We're ready to go for the next step. So load a bit of your frosting into a piping bag if you like for a little extra dramatic effect. And pipe on some nice little stars. And then garnish with some cherries. Now here's a little trick to get the pits out of the cherries, but make them still look whole. So pull the stem out, and you just kind of peel them open with your fingers, but leave them hinged at the bottom. And then pull out the pit, put the cherry back together, and put it on top of the frosting. Then you are done. And that's it. So now with dessert behind us, it's time to move on to the main course, the entree, the shrimp, the arugula, etc., etc. So the first thing you want to do is start by creating the seasoned vinegar that's going to dress the arugula. I have about a tablespoon each of chopped up chives and chopped sun-dried tomatoes. To that, I'm going to add 1.5 ounces of white vinegar. And I'm doing this in a slightly warm pan. Also a tablespoon of sugar and about 1/8 teaspoon of salt. You want to heat the vinegar and dissolve the salt and sugar in it and allow it the opportunity to infuse the flavors of the chives and the sun-dried tomatoes. Just bring it up to a warm state and let it sit. Add a little fresh cracked pepper if you like. And now we can start working on the polenta croquettes, which means we're going to need the roasted garlic. See how this is doing. That looks beautiful. Each clove is nice and soft. So let's go ahead and free out some of the cloves. Peels right apart. The skin peels right off. And each clove should just pop out nicely. You're going to need between 6 and 12 cloves to complete your polenta croquettes. So just harvest the cloves out of the largest sections for this particular recipe and save the rest for incorporating into other dishes in the future. And then take your prepared polenta. You can either cook it yourself or you can buy one of those nice little tubes from the store. Either or works. And pat it out so that you can see how much you're working with. And you want to plan to portion out approximately 6 nice balls. They're going to be about the size of your palm. Roll them and shape them. Poke a nice little hole in there. And then stuff it with the roasted garlic. If you have a smaller clove, use 2. If you have a larger clove, 1 will do the job just fine. Seal it back up in the ball. Roll it in some breadcrumbs. Give it a nice little coating of crustiness. And then drop it in your oil. Right after dropping it in, give it a nice little roll so that it retains its nice round shape. Allow it to become exposed to the oil all the way around. And then go back over here and shape some more. Now I'm putting my last croquette in. Now it's all about just moving these little guys around until they become a nice golden brown color, rolling them regularly to prevent them from sticking and to ensure a nice even coating. When they're all golden brown like that one, all the way around, they're good to go. So now let's get this very hot pot of oil out of the way, because oil burns are no way to have a romantic evening. Let's turn our attention back to the vinegar here. You can see that the tomatoes have plumped up a bit and the chives have turned a less bright green color, and that is perfect. You can go ahead and take that, pour it right over the arugula, scrape it all out, return it to the heat, and then toss your arugula gently to coat it all with the yummy infused vinegar you just made. Once the arugula is all tossed together, you can start working on the Buerre Blanc. So do that by taking about a tablespoon of chopped or minced shallot is preferable, onion is acceptable, a ½ ounce of white wine vinegar and a ½ ounce of white wine. And just simply turn up the heat a little bit to boil off the liquids. But before you walk away from it, turn it into a lemon Buerre Blanc by adding a couple squeezes worth of lemon juice. The vinegar, the wine, and the lemon juice are going to cook out and almost quickly pickle that onion in there and form a great foundation for the Buerre Blanc. Let's go over here and work on the shrimp a little bit. I suggest putting a little spice rub on them. I'm using a blend of turmeric, about a teaspoon's worth, a ¼ teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of white pepper, and I'm going to just sprinkle this over the shrimp that I've already skewered. I'm using nice large shrimp. These are the 21 to 32 size or something like that. It's a great size for grilling because they fit on the skewer and they go perfectly in the mouth. Make sure you coat all the shrimp. Don't leave the end ones out. Turmeric's going to add a nice gentle spice, almost a gingeriness to it. So once your Buerre Blanc sauce has started to reach a nice vigorous bubble, you can add the shrimp to the grill. I'm going to add them to the grill first, then brush them with some melted butter. Kind of slide them on in there. There we go. Woo! Hot kitchen. Butter's just going to round out the flavor profile of the shrimp beautifully. A little flame's always good too. And just as the Buerre Blanc is almost cooked out all of the liquid, that's when you're going to want to remove it from the heat. And then add your ½ cup of cold butter that you've cubed up. You want to cube it up so that it melts more evenly. Whisk it vigorously while it's off the heat. You're basically cooling the pan, melting the butter, and building a beautiful fluffy texture all at the same time while your shrimp cooks. Whisk it until all that butter's melted. Just like that. And hold it off the burner until you're ready to plate. Let's go back over here to these shrimp. Give the skewers a little turn here. Look at that nice color. I love the color that turmeric puts onto food. It's like painting. Another little brush with the butter. While those finish off, prepare for plating. Just gonna give the sauce another little swirl here. And back over here. I'm gonna add the croquettes to the plate, 3 to a plate. Add 3 points. And then bring in the arugula. Place that nice little mound like that between the croquettes. It's already looking good enough to eat. Wait till we add that shrimp. Each skewer finishes. Place them across the top. Nice little fashion like that. Pour the Buerre Blanc in a nice little stream over each skewer. Turn off the grill. How about that for an elegant and distinctive feast for your sweetie? Not too hard, but very delicious. Pair this up with a nice white wine, perhaps a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay to go with that delicious butteriness, and call in your sweetie. Date night! Hi, honey.
Hi, baby. Wow, look at that. Wow.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Beautiful.
This little date night meal for you.
I love date night at home.
That is awesome. Oh, where to start?
No kidding.
I won't tell you what's inside this. You're gonna like it.
This is such a hot kitchen.
So thanks for joining me in my hot kitchen tonight. Have fun turning up the heat in your kitchen, and I'll see you next week. Night night.
Love extra icing.
Hey, I know what you can do with that.